Welcome back to Primetime News.
Special welcome to folks on OneSpotMedia.com.
Up first this evening, it appears that security resources deployed in the state of emergency now underway in the St. Catherine North Police Division have been scaled down.
The issue came to fore after it was observed that several checkpoints either had fewer or no police military presence.
So what has been happening in the division? TVJ's Anthony Lugg reports.
Where are the security forces? It's a question many residents in the St. Catherine North Police Division have been asking for several weeks. So we went searching ourselves over several days at critical checkpoints in the state of emergency. Our first stop, Angels on Wednesday night, where there was only one JDF member in sight. Motorists approaching checkpoints should slow down, bring their windows down, and turn on their roof lights, but that was not being done. Over in Twickenham Park, things were slightly different, but it's nothing compared to when the state of emergency was just declared. On Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we drove through several checkpoints where we noticed no police or soldiers. Vehicles went in and out without being checked. This tent in Bernard Lodge and the position of these railings used by the security forces along Old Harbour Road speak volumes. The security forces are nowhere in sight. But by Monday, the numbers increased. We're now approaching the Twickenham Park security checkpoint. Over the last week, there's been little security presence. Today, the security forces are out in their numbers, and we're going to go through the checkpoint to see if our vehicle will be searched.
Afternoon.
And that's it. We then went into some communities to speak with residents, but they were tight-lipped, so we sought a response from the police.
We are not moving into our next phase. In fact, we are fully into this phase. This phase will carry us up to the 3rd of July. What you might be seeing is that there are more activities on the inner corridors. So we have moved persons from the general vehicle checkpoints, and we are utilizing them for targeted raid and other activities. But the points are still in place. Maybe the number is not as large as it used to be, but we are utilizing the numbers we have in the inner cordons of the St. Catherine North Division.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Lawyers representing the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, began submissions today before the appeal court as they seek to take the dispute with the Police Federation to the UK-based Privy Council. The court is being asked to determine the extent of the entity's powers. More in this report.
The appeal court ruled in March that the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, did not have the power to arrest, charge or prosecute members of the police force. The decision has curtailed the activities of INDECOM, which now has to submit its files to the Director of Public Prosecutions for rulings. In making submissions on Monday, INDECOM Commissioner Terence Williams told the 3-member panel of judges that the agency wants the law lords to settle the issue of whether he and his investigators have the power to arrest and charge under the INDECOM Act. He acknowledged that under the current statute, INDECOM does not have the power to prosecute. Mr. Williams further argued that he wants the Privy Council to settle the question of whether INDECOM can go beyond its investigative authority. INDECOM has applied to the appeal court to stay its judgment until the matter is settled by the Privy Council. However, this request is being vigorously opposed by the Police Federation. Lawyers for the Federation argued that while they agree that the Constitution gives INDECOM the right to apply to the Privy Council, they will challenge the application for the stay. The hearing continues tomorrow. Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
3 of the 4 suspects who are being investigated in connection with the upsurge of violence in Cassava P. St. Andrew have been released. The men, who are family members and associates of dancehall entertainer Mavado, were released on the weekend. However, the entertainer's 17-year-old son remains in custody as cops investigate recent cases of murder and shootings in the Cassava Peace community. 5 men, including Mavado's son, were picked up at his Norbrook residence last week Tuesday. The cops have sent out an advisory urging Mavado to surrender to them for questioning about the violence. He's overseas. However, his attorneys are making arrangements for his return. The head of the St. Andrew North Police, Superintendent Glenford Miller, has warned that the police will not wait indefinitely for the artiste to surrender to them.
In the meantime, Chase Cross, one of the 5 who was detained last week, was rearrested today after being released on bond on Friday. Chase Cross, whose given name is Samir Coombs, was charged with assaulting Anthony Goulburn, the man charged with shooting at Mavado on June 2. Since the attack on Mavado, the police have been forced to impose a curfew in Cassava Peace after rival gunmen in the area began trading bullets.
The police have charged a second suspect in relation to the recent murder of Constable Darren Henry. Constable Henry, who was attached to the Motorized Patrol Division, was killed at the Terra Nova Hotel in St. Andrew on May 22. The 2 suspects, Eudine Brown and Omar Ricketts, are scheduled to appear in court tomorrow. The Criminal Investigation Branch is pursuing other suspects.
More Jamaicans working on the multi-million-dollar Mandela Highway project have signed up for union representation. The workers employed by Chinese contractors took strike action recently, pressing for better wages and improved working conditions. But even as some workers are now unionized, there are calls for more people to sign up. TVJ's Kalisha Williams has this primetime news follow-up.
This Jamaican worker employed to the Mandela Highway Improvement Project put in his signature on documents on Monday morning. Beside him, his colleague browsing through the document. They are among scores of workers signing an agreement to become unionized following a 6-day strike action.
We are sorry for the workers. We are deeply sorry because I can't believe that 2018 we would have these workers, Jamaican workers, working under these conditions.
We want the project to be successful, but it must not be at the expense of the workers' rights.
It has been a tough few days for the Jamaican workers as they press for better working conditions. Representatives from the Union of Clerical, Administrative and Supervisory Employees UCASE and the Bustamante Industrial Trade Union BITU brought proposals to the workers, but only a small group turned up.
If them don't come forward, sign the form so we can serve the claim on the company and ask the Ministry of Labour to take the poll. If that is not done before the project completes, then nothing can be done for that.
The unions told us they have been trying to secure representation for the workers through the Ministry of Labour for some time now.
We were told by the Ministry of Labour that the 80 members here that we serve claim on behalf, that we didn't make out the case to have a poll. What in law they call a prima facie case. So we have always been out here, but to be frank in this matter, the workers themselves must be blamed because the workers have failed to come forward.
We were told of incidents of victimization after the workers took industrial action recently.
Victimization is rampant. In fact, we're told this morning that those employees who some of the employees who participated in the work stoppage a couple of days ago, they have not been recalled. In fact, some have been singled out as ringleaders.
General Secretary of UCASE John Levy says there's also a breach of International Labour Law Convention 94.
What is ironic about this is that I've written to the OCG, I've written to the NCC, I've written to the Prime Minister, I've written to the Permanent Secretary, and I have shared copies of this convention with all the Ministers of Labour over the last 3-4 years, and it is not being addressed. I don't know why. Up to recently we met with the Minister of State in the Ministry of Labour and I shared a copy again, but somehow this matter of the convention is not being addressed.
Even as the unions seek redress, they are imploring the workers to continue working. Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
Vendors at the Constant Spring Market in St. Andrew have secured an injunction barring the government from evicting them from the property for the next 14 days. The market is to be demolished to allow Constant Spring Road to be widened, but the attorney representing the vendors, Bert Samuel, says they were not given enough notice to evacuate the property.
They were entitled to written notice and to be heard whether they can remove in that time. Many of these vendors were in the market for over 40 years. And therefore we took the matter before the court that their constitutional right to be consulted where any property interest, because under the KCAC Act, they are paying vendors and they are licensees. That gives them a status in law, and that status entitles them to be properly protected by the Constitution, which says that if you're going to do anything as a state that affects a person's right to property, then they should have a fair hearing.
A top story this evening, police military presence in St. Catherine North state of emergency scaled down. And still ahead, pay up. Gasoline retailers and Consumer Affairs Commission press for bad gas compensation to be settled. And in business news, concerns over a sliding dollar.
Welcome back. Continuing the news. Stakeholders in the local petroleum sector are expressing frustration with the slow pace of discussion surrounding the possibility of compensation for persons who purchased bad gas 3 years ago. Representatives say the talks seem to be at a standstill. TVJ's Herman Green tells us more.
In 2015, the so-called bad gas saga saw dozens of Jamaicans crying foul as tainted gas entered the trade, causing damage to vehicles. There were cries for compensation, including from then opposition leader Andrew Holness. It was acknowledged last year that compensation would be paid, but fast forward to June 2018 and discussions about making the payments are yet to be concluded. It's understood that a report was done on the issue, but the findings were inconclusive. Stakeholder groups including the Consumer Affairs Commission, CAC, and the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association, JGRA, say they are frustrated with the situation.
The report alone being inconclusive. The report being inconclusive assisted in delaying a quick result. I know the CAC has held several meetings. The Ministry of Energy came up with a formulation as to how the reimbursements would be funded. And that is at a standstill because the parties involved have not fully agreed to it.
What parties involved?
Basically the importers and the marketing companies.
JGRA President Philip Chong notes that in addition to consumers who were affected, his members were also impacted as they not only lost business during the period, but the image of some service stations were also tarnished. We contacted Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley about the situation. However, he told us the matter is no longer with his ministry, but now falls under the Industry and Commerce Ministry. The opposition spokesman on energy, Philip Powell, believes the government needs to take decisive action.
I know the Consumer Affairs Commission was supposed to have collated the data from those persons who were affected. So I think it is appropriate that the government should address this issue as it had made a promise to the people.
Mr. Chung agrees that decisive action is needed to settle the matter. In an effort to remove the fear from consumers and rebuild the trust in the sector, he believes the funds to compensate consumers can be taken from the temperature compensation payment, which goes to the marketing companies for gas lost through evaporation. He also has no doubt about who should take that initiative to settle the payments.
Well, I think Ministry of Science and Energy should make that call. They preside over that part of the industry. If they use the temperature compensation for a couple of days, it can pay. Just retract this sum and use it.
His message to the government, just get it done. Herman Green, TVJ News.
The long overdue regulations for funeral home operators could finally come to fruition this year. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton gave this assurance to funeral home operators who are disgruntled that the issue has been delayed. TVJ Shimela Mitchell reports.
It's 9 years and counting since funeral directors were promised regulation for their sector. The directors say they were hoping Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton would have addressed the issue in his sectoral presentation in Parliament last week. Dr. Tufton said he did not simply because the time did not allow him to do so. But he said the draft regulation has been prepared.
What now has to be done is the drafting of the regulations is to be completed. And that falls in another ministry. I know Minister Truck is seized with the importance of it. And he and I have spoken. And so I'm hoping that they will complete that as quickly as possible.
He's now hoping the regulations will come into effect before the year is out to govern the more than 100 funeral homes operating in the island.
It is a very important issue, and we are in fact making some progress. So I'm hoping that during the course of this year we will not only complete the regulation but we'll pass it into law, and they will have at least that framework to govern the industry.
It is taking a long time, but I think the regulations are important to bring some semblance of order to how people who call themselves undertakers, how they operate.
The funeral directors say they welcome the regulations that are being promised. President of the Funeral Directors Association of Jamaica, Calvin Lynn, says it will help to eliminate public health concerns among his colleagues, some of whom he admits operate without the proper tools.
Action time is now, because they know the dangers of the communicable diseases around, among other things.
Shamala Mitchell, TVJ News.
School administrators at the Cambridge High School in St. James are tight-lipped about an incident which took place between a teacher and a student at school over a week ago. TVJ News sources say the incident involves a male teacher pulling a knife on a male student during an altercation. It's not clear if either of the two was injured. Our correspondent visited the school on Monday, but no one was available to speak on the matter. We understand that the school's board met with the teacher today, but we are unsure of the outcome. On Friday, our news center made contact with the police and the Child Development Agency, and both agencies confirmed that the matter had been reported to them.
It's now a watch-and-wait situation for the recent fire victims at Upper King Street who were given 48 hours to leave the building. The remaining structure was deemed unsafe by the Kingston and St Andrew Municipal Corporation and is scheduled to be demolished. TVJ's Kirk Wright has this primetime news update.
It's over 2 weeks since fire destroyed a residence along King Street in Kingston, and most of the 50 people who lived at the premises are still trying to settle. Some are still living at the same burnt-out location, but under substandard conditions. The victims were too embarrassed to show themselves on camera and did not allow us to film beyond these walls, but we observed most sleeping on makeshift beds with tarpaulins as roofs. But not all 50 victims remain. Some were able to get shelter with family and friends, but 69-year-old Frederick Lafayette had no such luck. He has been sleeping on his handcart in front of the Mother's Restaurant at the St. William Grand Park in downtown Kingston.
Sleeping at night is our problem. When we want somewhere to live, can't live on the street. Can't live on the street. Want somewhere to live. We need some help.
What kind? No, you're thinking about it, but you know it's hard for the government to find places for people to live. What would you say the government should do in order to help you to find somewhere to live?
Well, as far as me is concerned, because I don't really have nobody to understand, but any little support to them can give us.
Panchita Walters, another fire victim, decided not to stay with anyone.
We have family, but I don't choose a place. I just choose to get on the road for myself. Food and support for myself.
Why would you not choose to stay with your family though when, I don't know, is it that your family wouldn't help you?
No, them would help me for them. Say if we get bored and say we could have built something there at their own.
The families say they have not heard of any help coming their way, but last week when Mayor of Kingston, Delroy Williams, visited, he said this.
We will be in contact with the family members and we will help them through this situation.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
In this week's edition of Array of Hope.
Good evening and welcome to the Business Day. I'm Herman Green. It's now costing an average $130.19 for the U.S. currency. A month ago, it was at 125 Jamaican dollars. So what triggered this slide in the dollar? President of the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, PSOJ, Howard Mitchell, gave some insight.
And I'm also aware that there have been some transactions which have maybe affected liquidity in that they've drawn down on available supply of US dollars. And I'm also aware that the announced reduction or plan to reduce interest rates will cause the US dollar to go to more lucrative ground. That is, that people will put their dollar elsewhere.
The PSOJ president also told the Business Day that Bank of Jamaica Governor Brian Winter has advised the private sector not to be caught up with how the dollar moves. Instead, they should focus more on inflation performance. Nevertheless, Mr. Mitchell says it's something he'll continue to monitor. And the US dollar sold higher today. The American currency ended the day at $130.22. The Canadian dollar went for $99.30. The British pound closed at $172.11, while the euro held firm at $153.43 on average. The Barbadian government has announced a series of tax measures as part of its new fiscal policies. Prime Minister Mia Mottley, whose Barbados-led Barbados Labour Party, BLP, came to office following the May 24 general election, today said she was determined that the island would not be regarded as a failed state under her administration. The government will introduce a new upper income tax band of 40%, levy a fuel tax, and impose the value-added tax on Barbadians engaged in online transactions. In the meantime, public servants in Barbados are to receive a 5% increase in wages. The agreement reached with the new administration is for the period April 1 this year to April 1, 2019. In the meantime, the Barbados government also announced today that it had reached an agreement with public sector unions for workers to forego an increase for the period April 1, 2014 to March 31 this year. Grace Kennedy today announced that it will acquire a 35% share in the Catherine's Peak Pure Spring bottled water brand, which is owned by Peak Bottling Company Limited. This is subject to further due diligence. The acquisition is being undertaken following the signing of a binding memorandum of understanding between Grace Kennedy and Peak Bottling. Grace Kennedy has also been appointed as the exclusive distributor for the Catherine's Peak brand. Oil prices settled higher today. Oil for delivery in July settled at $66.06 a barrel. Analysts have indicated that Iran's crude exports have already started to fall and Venezuela is headed for a cliff dive. In the meantime, Saudi Arabia is diverting much of its increase to demand regions rather than the U.S. The main JSE index gained 947 points today to close at more than 302,000 points. The junior index also gained 65 points. Among the winners today were Access Financial Services, Barita Investments, Caribbean Cream Company, Caribbean Cream, Flavors and Fragrances, Carreras and Elite Diagnostics. On the losing side were Caribbean Producers, Siboney Group, General Accident Insurance, Jamaica Broilers Group, Jamaica Producers, Jetcon Corporation, and Kingston Properties. And that wraps up the Business Day. I'm Herman Green. Good evening.
Business Day is brought to you by
Talk with a Guardian advisor today. Guardian Life. Live secure. Live easy.
In news overseas, U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un are in Singapore, gearing up to participate in their historic summit in the next hour. With a preview, we go to the CNN.
The leaders of the U.S. and North Korea are just hours away from making history, meeting face-to-face for the first time at a summit in Singapore. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, also on the ground in Singapore, says President Trump is ready.
President Trump is going into this meeting with confidence, a positive attitude, and eagerness for real progress.
Korea is really willing to denuclearize.
The ultimate objective we seek from diplomacy with North Korea has not changed. The complete, verifiable, and irreversible denuclearization of the Korea Peninsula is the only outcome that the United States will accept.
Other topics expected to be on the agenda reportedly include the sanctions the U.S. has imposed on North Korea, officially ending the Korean War, and normalizing relations between the two nations. With so much to accomplish in one meeting, officials acknowledge future meetings are definitely a possibility.
President Trump believes that Kim Jong-un has an unprecedented opportunity to change the trajectory of our relationship and bring peace and prosperity to his country. We are hopeful this summit will have set the conditions for future productive talks.
Fans of the late chef Anthony Bourdain have turned his former New York restaurant into a memorial site. Since his death on Friday, people have been leaving flowers and notes thanking Bourdain for connecting the world through his life's work.
This makeshift memorial to Anthony Bourdain has been growing over the past 3 days since news of his early passing spread all around the world, and it's fitting that it would take place here at Brasserie Les Halles, which was a restaurant which is now closed, but that was so important to Bourdain. He loved French food, and this is really where he made his name. He was executive chef of this restaurant starting in 1998. It was here that he worked on his book, Kitchen Confidential, which became a huge bestseller. So people have been coming here for the past 3 days to lay bouquets of flowers, as well as a French baguette right here, and bottles and cans of beer, and leaving what are really some very heartfelt notes. If you take a look at this one, this reads, "It made no sense that I loved you as I did. I talked about you in therapy. We never met." And we have been speaking with people out here, both American and non-Americans, about what they felt about Bourdain, what he meant to them, including a man who used to be a waiter here when Bourdain was a chef. Take a listen.
Very kind, very graceful, nice to everybody. I thought he wrote like Hunter S. Thompson and kind of lived his life kind of like a rebel. You know what I mean? Like a cook. He always referred to himself as a cook, not a chef, which I appreciated. You know, he didn't have like this throne that he sat on or anything like that. He remained humble.
And the Primetime News Package continues with sports right after the break.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports Monday. Now, Jamaica's female cricketers started their Women's Regional T20 Championship on a winning note after a comfortable 8-wicket win over Guyana at Sabina Park last night. There were also wins for defending champions Trinidad and Tobago and Barbados. More in this report. Americans won the toss and inserted Guyana in the day-night affair, a decision which proved to be the right one. The Guyanese struggled to get going and were eventually restricted to 75 for 8 off their 20 overs, with Roshana Attar claiming 3 for 12 and Captain Stefani Taylor 2 for 11, both from 4 overs. Shanita Grimmond top scored for Guyana with 24, while Extras was the next best scorer with 17. In reply, the Cleon Smith coached team eased to victory at 76 for 2 off 16.2 overs, with Jodie and Morgan top scoring with 19, with support from Natasha McLean 16 not out, and Taylor returning to make 16.
We spoke earlier in the team meeting that we wanted to start the tournament on a high, and I thought the bowling unit did really, really well today, and finish off with the batting. Yeah, I think sometimes when you're playing at home and you see your home crowd, you really want to do well, and I think it was a bit of nerves and players being a bit shaky, but I know that once we get going we will pick up, and I thought with 1 wicket, getting that 1 wicket actually turned the game for us.
Taylor's side will next be in action on Tuesday at the Kensington Oval in a 2:30 encounter. Earlier, defending champions Trinidad and Tobago also made a winning start after a comprehensive 68-run win over the Leeward Islands in the first match of the doubleheader at Sabina Park. The Twin Island Republic first posted 132 for 8, with Stacey and King scoring 38 not out, while Renice Boyce got 25. In response, the Eastern Caribbean ladies could only muster 64 for 5 from their 20 overs, as King returned to pick up 2 for 13.
Yeah, I think our main objective was to just go out there and make sure that we hit all areas. I think we did that. The pitch didn't really play the way we wanted it to. The ball wasn't coming on, but I think Stacey and King really went out there and make sure she put a good score on the ball for the team, and I think it was a collective everybody just come together and make sure that we won this game, and I'm really happy from the start.
Elsewhere, Barbados recorded an opening match win as they sealed an 18-run victory over the Windward Islands at Kensington Park. Batting first, Barbados posted 101 all out with Deandra Dottin 40 against Akira Peters 2 for 9, Kiana Joseph 2 for 24 and Vanisha King 2 for 35. The Winwoods, in reply, could only manage 83 for 8 from their 20 overs, with Joseph returning to score 14 against Shimella Connell, 2 for 14.
I am happy with the win, but we didn't hit the targets that we wanted to hit with the bat for sure. We thought we got ourselves into a position where we should have gone to at least 120 after being 80 something odd in 14 overs. We thought that we should have gone to at least 120, but we had a collapse at the end, and as a result we only managed to make 100. But we know we have a very good bowling team, and we were confident defending that on this wicket.
On Tuesday, Trinidad and Tobago will oppose Guyana starting at 9:30 a.m, while Barbados and the Leeward Islands square off at 6:30 p.m. Both matches are being played at Sabina Park. Many-time champions White House and Petersville will contest the Westmoreland final of this SDC National T20 Community Cricket Competition following contrasting wins in semi-final action at Seaview Oval on Sunday. Denise Walters now reports.
The SDC National T20 Cricket Competition, brought to you by
Simple thing, Lasco Money. It's your money store.
Boasting some of the best players, former national champions White House and Petersville played true to expectation to come away with the semi-final wins in Westmoreland. White House defeat Orange Hill by 9 runs, while Petersville beat Broughton by 44 runs. In the feature match, White House, who took first to strike, got off to a poor start and were reeling at 33 for 3 with their 2 elite players, Kamar Lewis and Ramon Lewis, back into the pavilion for 2 runs each. 14-year-old Froome high-fast bowler Rushane Gale was the main destroyer for Orange Hill, taking impressive figures of 4 for 14. He was responsible for the 5th and 6th wickets of Ewart McCoy for 17 and Donald Tomlinson for 0 of his first 2 deliveries, as White House stumbled further to 108 for 6. However, Hugh Blackwood stemmed the slide temporarily by smashing 4 sixes off Mark Weekly, but Gale returned to send Blackwood packing for 30. 8 balls later, the teenager bowled Anthony Mitchell for duck as White House were dismissed for 100. Rain stopped play for approximately 40 minutes, chasing a revised target of 58 runs under the Duckworth-Lewis system. Orange Hill, which required an additional 37 runs off 24 balls, struggled as former West Indies under-19 spinner Ramon Lewis took a hat-trick. After conceding 2 sixes from his first 2 deliveries, Lewis removed Ziggy Levy for 16 before accounting for Javian Storer and Nico Banton, both for ducks, to leave Orange Hill reeling at 34 for 5. And after Ewan Andrews was given out LBW by umpire Hugh Fogel, the Orange Hill players protested the decision, which held up the game for another 5 minutes. Given an additional 5 runs to chase for bringing the game into dispute, Orange Hill were eventually restricted to 44 for 7.
Confident, we had to defend it, and we go out there with the belief to defend it. We have the bowling hadn't been bowling well from season, and they came today and they did what they asked for. We were really confident in my bowling unit.
In the opening game, Michael Froome hammered 104, consisting of 11 sixes and 6 fours, while sharing in a 3rd wicket stand of 178 with Howard Jamieson, who ended unbeaten on 75, as Petersville piled up 277 for 3. In reply, Broughton fell 44 runs short despite a 4th wicket stand of 115 between former Jamaican opener Dixit Palmer, who made 65, and Luke Wright 48.
Well, we came out today, we won the toss, and we said we would bat, and I think we batted them out of the game. Michael Froome, our national representative, he made 100 and set up the game for us.
The SDC National T20 Cricket Competition, brought to you by
Simple thing, Lasco Money. It's your money store.
Some basketball news now, as the St. George's Slayers were too strong for the UWI Running Rebels as they won the 3rd and deciding match of the National Basketball League All-Ireland Finals 74-60 for a 2-1 series win at the National Arena last night. Daniel Blake has a summary.
As it was in the Southern Conference, so it was in the grand finale. It was all Slayers from the start as they dominated the UE Running Rebels. Once again, it was star guard Michael Rogers who was the leading man for the Slayers, scoring 25 points and grabbing 12 rebounds to propel his team to the win. The Rebels, on the other hand, couldn't find enough offensive firepower beyond former national captain Kimani Friend and Javon Bailey, who combined for 27 points. Rogers was named the MVP for his performance.
We number one, we victorious, we came out on top. And I mean, winning the MVP is just icing on the cake. We came out here, we just tried to get more points than the other team. That was the goal at the end of the day. Whatever happened after that, just happens.
Head coach Rohan Robinson spoke of the moments when he knew his team would lift the trophy.
When I knew that we had the game covered, we came to the half time, and when we went outside, based on what we were doing in the first half and the way I see everyone focused and on the outside, just ready and talking about what they see and putting in their input, what we need to work on. You understand? We came back out a little bit complacent a bit, you know, but turning over the ball, get back to the game plan, and then with that confidence just keep building.
Meanwhile, Running Rebels coach Pete Matthews was proud of his team's performance despite the result.
Well, it was a relatively reasonable showing, I would say, but it was just not good enough. The fight was there in particles, but enough fight was not there, I would say.
Daniel Blake, TVJ Sports.
Now, top local netball teams Jamalco and Tivoli advanced to the final of the Netball Jamaica Major League following convincing semi-final victories on Saturday evening at the Leela Robinson Court. The Clarendon-based Jamalco led from start to finish to outclass Molynes A 55-24. The combination of Marsha Murphy-Dawkins and Elaine Davis proved to be the catalyst for the victory as they held quarterly leads of 14-2, 32-6, 45-15 before pulling away for the comfortable victory.
Game, I think it was a team effort. We beat Molynes in the prelim round, and we beat them in the semi-final again. What we need to do this time around, we need to tighten up on some little areas because Molynes was about, at half-time there was about 8 or 6 somewhere around there, and they score in the defensive area, kind of slack no more. So they score a couple of goals to make it 24 or somewhere there. So, you know, we need to tighten up there.
Meanwhile, Open League champions Tivoli earned the right to play in the final after crushing neighbours Arnett Gardens 61-34. The West Kingston-based team held a 10-goal lead at half-time, 29-19, before a dominant third-quarter performance lifted them to a 24-goal advantage, 51-27. The Chris Campbell-coached team then scored 10 goals to Arnett 7 in the final quarter to set up the final with the Clarendon-based team.
We knew that Arnett Garden was coming hard as we played them before, and it was a close match, but I mean, we held our own, so it wasn't very much difficult for us. We kept the lead and it was a good win.
Now, Mid-Island netball was on display in the Issa Leela Robinson Under-14 netball final as defending champions Manchester High School were dethroned by Denby High 6-5 in overtime. It was a competitive game throughout, with both teams trading goals and exhibiting good defense in strong wind. The teams were inseparable at 4-all at full, and an extra 5 minutes had to be used to settle the match. Eventually, Denby got the victory by the odd goal to take the Leela Robinson Trophy back to Clarendon.
Very difficult somewhat because it is a rally and it is a 3 minutes game or 5 minutes game. The least mistake you make or turnovers you make, you may lose the game. But however, our girls always, especially the defense line, always kept us intact, so we have never lost any game throughout the entire league.
In the third place playoff, St. Hugh's beat Mayday 8-5 in Group H. Now, second Vice President of the Manchester Football Association, Dudley Powell, has appealed for businesses and individuals in the parish to support the sport at the youth level. Making the appeal at the start of the 2018 season, or the 2018 season of the association's Under-15 competition, which is without a sponsor, Powell pointed to the achievements of the players at the youth level.
Even as we speak, there is still no sponsors on board, but we realize that the football is critical to the development of our youngsters, and it is through this medium, the Under-15, why we were able to produce a team to represent Manchester in the elite and Under-18 league, and you would have known that they did us proud, and a nursery of this sort is really a stepping stone for the kids to move on to higher levels.
Powell also spoke of the importance of the under-15 program to the overall development of the sport in the parish.
I think three players from the parish are actually, on the under-15, the national under-15 setup just now. Yeah, very much so. And I'm using this opportunity, to encourage, sponsors to come on board, corporate sponsors to come on board, so we can ensure that, we basically, give the youth a chance for them to excel.
In the opening match played at the Kirkvine Sports Club on Saturday, Villa Academy defeated Mayday Academy 1-0. 18 teams divided into 3 zones will compete for the title over 4 weeks. Former Da Costa Cup winners Veer Technical is one of 17 teams who will compete in this year's Jamalco Football League, which kicked off on Sunday with a 7-a-side rally. The competition, which has been running since 1987, sees teams from Manchester and Clarendon competing for the title. Lance Robinson, a member of the Clarendon Football Association, urged players to use the league as a stepping stone towards the elite level.
Right. Presently we are engaging the youth across the island in a selection process for the Under 23 or the Olympics team. Some of you might have been to the training the other day. You were there? You were there at the training, right? So it's another avenue for you to excel, to be rewarded nationally.
On the weekend, Raymond's FC won the rally, defeating Savannah FC 4-3 on penalties after a 0-0 scoreline.